Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the showdown between my Chinese and the Abbasid dynasty. So spawning here on the southwest side of the map, it's going to be myself on the Chinese facing off against the Abbasid up in the northeast. So as far as the opening goes, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a faster tier 2 because my overall strategy this game is going to be using the Chinese repeater crossbows, which you do unlock with the dynasty and getting a very aggressive push. And there's some really cool builds you can do now with, of course, the most recent changes to China is you can use the supervisor to supervise blacksmiths. So for example, if you want to get siege engineering, feudal age upgrades very quickly, you can really get a massive force multiplier. On top of that, you have gotten a pretty big change to the repeater crossbows themselves. They did have a substantial reduction in their food cost. So now their total resources is basically the same as an archer. However, they do have a gold cost, whereas their food cost is offset down in the 20s. So you guys will be seeing kind of the tech for that this game. Now my opponent up here in the northeast is going to be building his House of Wisdom fairly early. You do often see Abbasid players kind of wait on that. Sometimes they build extra resource gathering, but again, getting it quick. He's going for a very standard build here, going to be setting up a mining camp, hitting the gold, and going to tier 2 very, very quickly. Now, I always kind of perceive the Abbasid as a bit of a rush faction. They get the siege engineering for free, so sometimes at tier 2, you're going to see 1,000,000 archers backed up by battering rams. But maybe the meta has shifted a little bit in that regard, because lately I've been seeing Abbasid players go very, very eco-heavy, right? So getting stone very early, going for a second TC, utilizing the fresh foodstuffs to reduce the cost of villagers by 50%. So you can get a pretty good little boost there, which is quite nice. So if you guys haven't played the Abbasid before, the way it works is they don't build landmarks. Rather, they have the House of Wisdom, each of which has access to a different tech, and each of these will advance you to the next age. So you have the economic wing, military, cultural, and trade wing. Each of them unlocks their respective tree of research. It's pretty cool for sure. But one thing you got to watch out for if you are playing the Abbasid is that if you do lose your House of Wisdom as well as your TC, you are going to be losing the game because it does satisfy the condition to destroy all landmarks. But it's harder than it might look because the House of Wisdom does have a ton of HP, and as you age up, it gets more and more HP. I think at the second age in the feudal age, it has like 7,000 HP, which is 2,000 more than most landmarks have, if I'm not mistaken. So pretty good sheep haul for my opponent there. He gets a ton of sheep. Very, very nice pick. And for myself, just going to be getting the 7 here. Usually I get 3 on gold, and then I get a couple on lumber as well. And this is so you can actually build, obviously, an additional house. If you don't start on lumber at some point, you're going to be getting supply block. But more importantly, I use it to build the goodies, the archery range and all that important stuff that you're going to be getting at tier 2, the blacksmith. You guys get the picture for the most part. So we'll do a little bit of fast forwarding here. My scout's just running around. I've had a pretty bad run of sheep, honestly. Haven't really found too many. This guy's kind of drifting through the forest. Very epic for sure. In terms of current resources here, my opponent is going to be aging up a little bit faster than myself. He is going to be going with the economic wing, which is very standard. I mean, if you look at the other wings, the military wing can give you access to camel support, so you can get that in the feudal age with a camel archer and then move up and get like an armor push, which isn't bad actually. So for example, if you want to get a bunch of spears and bows, they're all going to be getting 1 additional armor. Although it says increases the armor, I don't know if it specifies, is that melee armor, is it ranged armor, or does it count as both? If it's actually both, then that's very, very strong. Now, I'm going to be building the Barbecue of the Sun here, a very good building, and obviously now that TCs as well as defensive buildings like the Barbecue can actually be given targets, it's crazy good. So if your opponent's coming in with battering rams supported by archers, back in the day before the patch, they could send in a battering ram and basically just get all up on your buildings, and the TC and the Barbecue of the Sun would be kind of useless because they would just shoot the ram, which takes no damage from ranged. However, with China now, you can actually shoot the nearby spearmen, nearby archers, and then use your villagers to push back the ram. It's of course not an infallible strategy, but for the most part it does pretty good. So we've set up a mill, going to be going on the berry bushes. As soon as I hit tier 2, that's when I start to kind of move towards the official. I don't have him coming out yet, but once I do get a nice little mass of villagers here, the official is a very essential part of the strategy. But getting the official early is very good and very viable, but with this build, I like to be a little bit more aggressive because he does cost 150 food, right? And delays a little bit of your eco initially. So obviously the supervisor in the beginning as like an immediate build is stronger for your economic game in the long run, but if you're trying to rush somebody, I like to do this. Again, I don't know if that's optimal, just kind of experimenting. China is pretty new, and overall, lots of cool tricks. Really, really fun civ for sure. So the Barbecue of the Sun is up, and now we're going to be feeling pretty cozy right here, as it does give us a nice little radius of safety. For my opponent, he's going to be doing stone yet? I don't think so. We don't see any stone coming out, so for some reason I could have sworn this was a 2 TC game from him, but Unless we shall find out. So we're both in the second age. I think, no, he's actually a little bit behind. Again, China does have that rapid build. China builds all of its basic buildings 100% faster and defensive buildings 50% faster. So keeps and towers are 50%, and he's going to be going to stable, which I suppose is an intuitive answer against the repeater crossbow spam. However, in my experience, the critical mass of repeater crossbows basically just last samurai cavalry. It is really, really brutal. So my best bet against going against them is probably going for a fast castle age and just playing that way. Although you can use your own archers, because the repeater crossbows do have 4.5 tile range, if I'm not mistaken, and basic archers have 5. So with good micro, you can actually pick off the Chinese repeater crossbows and stay out of their distance. Again, it's very, very tricky, but we will see how it goes. So saving up here, you can see myself, I'm at 400. Food just about, yeah, very, very close here. And now that we get that, we're going to be building the second building here to unlock the dynasty. So we're going to be unlocking the old Song dynasty. That gives you villages, repeater crossbows, and faster villager production time, which is really cool. And I really enjoy this playstyle because basically you're on 1.5 TCs, right? Well, more or less. I mean, somewhere in that ballpark. So you're going to be not really sacrificing that much eco to build this. And you also have repeater crossbows. Now, before the patch, this build was kind of weird, right? Because the repeater crossbows were terrible. So you were getting the, the good old Song dynasty. But now that you do have the repeater crossbows being a good, effective, threatening unit, and that supervisors can, or officials can supervise blacksmiths and other buildings like that, you can get a ton of great value out. So my opponent is going to be building some horsemen, I believe. Let's go ahead and take a look at his perspective here. And it looks like he's going to be going scouts. And this is a very, very good eco strategy because he can do Grand Theft Venison, right? So he's going to be taking food away from the map and potentially starving me into my base and forcing me to go into farms earlier. That's one of the big boons. Big villager focus here on the stone outcropping. He almost has 300, so whenever you go past somebody's base with a scout, my scout is kind of lurking nearby. One of the first things you want to do if you see the mining stone is see how far along they are. So at this point, I'll ride by with my scout. I'll see that he has mined 300 stone, which is the prerequisite for a second TC. And you can pretty much know what they're doing. At that point, you can make a flash decision. Do I want to try and catch up eco-wise? Do I want to go fast castle? Or do I want to rush and punish? And in this case, I'm going to be trying to rush and punish. So Imperial Academy is coming out. Not a bad landmark. It does increase the taxes gathered, I believe, of nearby buildings. They generate 100% more tax gold. That's pretty good. The taxmen late game obviously do give you quite a bit. I believe if you're in the final age Imperial and you have all the pertinent upgrades and good economy going, you can actually maintain like 800 to 1200 gold from taxes consistently. Of course, if you are working, if you're being harassed and things like that, it can drop. I did go for a little bit of a secret agent deer camp, and the dreaded Abbasid wolves have ambushed me, so it looks like there is a royal rumble here in the forest as my villagers do battle the wolves here. And just kind of preparing for a push, my opponent with some very good Grand Theft Venison, which has been a staple of high-level play. So if I were going a little bit eco, I could be getting punished by this. Obviously, this is a pretty big food boom for him. But you can see here the build is coming into full effect. So now the supervisor is supervising the old archery range here. And when he does supervise that, it does give it, I believe, 200% faster production. So basically one archery range is as effective as 3. So the blacksmith's going to be coming up as well, and just pumping that bad boy to get the not only the ranged steeled arrow upgrade, which is super good, but also the siege engineering. So siege engineering is going to be coming in first, and to make sure I have enough lumber to back up the battering rams, I then switch my official over to the lumber camp. And the lumber camp is going to be giving me a ton of extra wood, 20% more to be precise, and I do have a second Imperial official out. So that's kind of my timing here. Right before I start the push, I get the second official. He can collect some taxes, and then one of them can supervise lumber, and the other one can supervise the archery range. And that's going to give you a pretty consistent flow of troops that will be moving across the map. So here, the ZHUGE here. They have a high rate of fire, pretty ineffective against armor, but you know what? If you actually upgrade their steeled arrow upgrade, they can wear down some armored targets. Men-at-Arms, I think, start with 3 armor. And obviously they don't do that much damage, but look at this. He sees it now. So his scouts move in, and during the game it was really funny. My opponent saw this. He was like, oh no. He actually typed it in chat as the repeater crossbows as well as the villagers are moving towards his base. So if you're going to be doing a ZHUGE new rush, I highly recommend bringing a couple villagers. It is essential. And the reason why is because China can actually build towers with hand cannon slits. And what that means is when your opponent goes castle age to try and defend, you're going to have hand cannons, which can actually kill men-at-arms and other troops like that very effectively. So my opponent does respond with an outpost, and to deny him as well, I get my builders here, but they do build faster than his, and also their repeater crossbows. Crossbows? That's a weird word. My brain just was like, what the hell's going on there? But we are able to pick off a couple of the villagers, force them back, and this is great because not only do we stop his lumber for now, but we also force a huge panic response, right? So my opponent builds an outpost here and here, and that's 200 wood that isn't going to military infrastructure, right? We're not going to be seeing archery ranges or barracks, which is very, very standard response here. So my opponent does move in. He's going to be getting that tower up. I pulled back for a second. He does hit his golden age, so the Abbasid have gotten their 10 buildings within the sphere of influence, and you can see all the buildings with the little plus signs here are within this sphere. So this one isn't, nor is this one. So they certainly need to be connected. So my outpost is up. I don't have enough stone at the moment to build, I don't believe. Yeah, I don't have enough for the old emplacement. But the first battering ram is going to be coming out, and the pressure will be put on the Abbasids here as the ZHUGE continue to push across the map. And you can see it's just rapid fire, just nonstop coming out. It's basically working at the speed of, 200% faster. Yeah, it's crazy, crazy good. On top of that, we're going to be getting the fitted leatherwork for the melee armor because I saw a stable, and we do also have the ranged upgrade. So now these bad boys are going to be hitting for 5 base and 3 burst attacks. I'm not quite sure about the math on that, but getting a 1 damage upgrade on that can be pretty effective here. So battering ram going to be moving in. The old Ramstein. I know it's not the HRE, but it is what it is. We can't complain here. So the pressure is going to be coming in, working on the tower here. My opponent's going to be garrisoning a little bit, but several of his villagers do get picked off by the repeater crossbows, which is great eco value for me. Looking at the current villager production, I'm sitting at 43, and my opponent is currently sitting at 41, so it just goes to show the power of the 1 TC Song Dynasty, because you are getting faster villager production, so even if you're putting aggression on your opponent like this, you're going to be getting a nice little boom. And of course, we've killed probably 6 or 7 villagers, I think, in our initial incursion, maybe like 3 or 4, so he was slightly ahead. He did get a second TC, so he was going to be surpassing me, but a couple of villagers do overextend there and get popped by the repeater crossbows, and a second battering ram is going to be coming down, and just to, make sure these guys are doing something effective here, I set up a little bit of a mill, and we're going to be going after some of these local deer, which is pretty hilarious. Now, not really producing too much military, rather my opponent's going to be going Castle Age, going Cultural Wing, which does unlock the Preservation of Knowledge, allowing them to get tech a little bit cheaper, which is very good. But while we push, we're going to be setting up more and more outposts, and at some point we will be setting up a marketplace, and we are going to be trying to, get the stone trade and get the goods going. So looking at my side here, military supplies at 31. The amount of just repeater crossbows you can pump out is pretty insane. Looks like some of the villagers and scouts are popping up, and some of them do get popped down, and we pull back, and his scouts coming in to maybe try and do a little bit of torching. But now you can see the difference, right? His villagers can actually choose to shoot at my repeater crossbows back here, whereas before, this would be 100% GG. My opponent would have lost the game. Would have been game blouses in the words of Dave Chappelle here. But now I am able to keep pushing, and my opponent's going to be able to hold more effectively because with proper micro. But man, look at the DPS coming out of those repeater crossbows. There are so many of them, and they barely cost any food. You can see I'm really not focusing on food much. I'm just going super hard on lumber so I can keep building these little outposts up in his base. You pick off the scouts, but I am taking a substantial amount of casualties from his TC, so a little bit scary. He still is getting a decent amount of villager production, but it looks like my opponent right now might be a little bit supply blocked, and he is. His supply is very, very low, and it looks like he was blocked because we did battering ram down several houses here. So more and more villagers having a little bit of a faulty route, but it doesn't matter too much. We would have gotten them anyways. 19 villagers are garrisoned in here, and my repeater crossbows are taking a bit of a beating. Now another tower coming up here, a little bit tricky because he's trying to focus on the archers. Now the dreaded villager legion's coming out. He re-garrisons here, and you can see how much more effective it is to hold against rams. Now, maybe some basic archers of his own would be helpful, but now that we have the outpost set up and we were able to kind of ninja one in front of his base here, we are going to be able to jump into the outpost, and even if he has his TC shooting us, we're going to have constant fire coming out. So I do move in a couple guys there. The battering rams are working on the old TC, and now it looks like the villagers are going to be coming for the kill as I set up another outpost right here. And now he does get the torches, is able to take out one of my rams, so well played there, but we got more and more coming, building more rams in the back as the repeater crossbows form a little bit of nest here. Looks like his TC is being unmanned right now. Now let's look at the eco count. He's got 42 villagers against my 55. So we're still producing pretty well in the back of the map there. And ooh, wrong button. And looking at my base here, we do set up a marketplace pretty soon. I have taken advantage of the villages. I think that was a mistake. I spent about 300 wood on the villages. I only needed to build one, but I just wanted to get it out of the way. It's kind of a bad habit of myself getting supply blocked. It's like, let's do it, man. Let's get that supply going. But that could have been more rams. I could have had 2 more battering rams here, so I did kind of mess up a little bit. Now, a little bit scary. My opponent has lancers. He does have men-at-arms coming out, and that was kind of his defensive plan here, was to get a ton of armor. And yeah, it's going to be pretty effective. You can see a lot of firepower going into that knight there, the epic slow-motion attacks. But yeah, you can see the knights, even with them being here, are going to be getting just a ton of repeater crossbow fire. And I probably should have been scooting and shooting here, but I was like microing the battering rams, and the villager legion was coming in for blood, which is how you want to defeat these sieges. When you're attacking their archers or their pressure units, you pull the villagers while they're occupied. But even still, the repeater crossbows, I was kind of staying here also because I had the tower support, and I didn't want to pull it away from that. But yeah, you can see big damage coming in. So his repeater crossbows actually deal with armor pretty damn well. And are we getting that damn marketplace yet? I could have sworn we did, but that's kind of the next stage of the attack. So going after the TC here, the score is pretty decently in my favor, but not as much as you would think. I mean, my opponent is in Castle Age. I'm in feudal, so if there's like one blunder of an engagement, he gets a critical mass of men-at-arms and can push me back. It's going to be kind of scary, but again, we have the outposts here, each of which are slightly garrisoned, and the TC is going to be paying the price. So a little bit of fast forwarding here as we continue to pressure. Now we will be going after the House of Wisdom, which you can see in the Castle Age actually has 12,000 HP, which is crazy strong. So we move back with the repeater crossbows, getting some decent pot shots here at the villagers, but he does garrison his second TC. Of course, he was going for a very eco-heavy build, and the villagers do pay the price. Granted, I do lose a couple of these guys, but we are the Chinese ZHUGE, and repeater crossbows, this is all off one archery range. I'm just supervising this and spamming. Now we have the marketplace up, so this is kind of the answer to Castle Age. So obviously if you're kind of all in like I am here in this situation in the Feudal Age, the Chinese outposts are really, really good against armor because they have hand cannon emplacements here. So a little bit of scooting and shooting as we do pick off this men-at-arms here. It takes a lot, but you know, volume of fire is volume of fire, and we are getting them down slowly, while the House of Wisdom is given the good old Ramstein. So we do have the emplacements coming soon. I think, yeah, we bought a little bit of stone. You can see we now have 200 because I did have a pretty big excess of gold here. And yeah, we're just trying to take down whatever we can and just keep pushing on that House of Wisdom here. So back to my opponent's perspective, taking a look at the eco. He's got 45, pretty good production considering the circumstances. Oh, and look at this play from him. Actually going to be going for a castle. And yeah, now the towers are getting the hand cannon slits, which do 25 damage base. So, you know, obviously the men-at-arms are very durable against the ZHUGE because they mitigate much of their damage with their armor. But against 25 base damage on the hand cannon emplacement, it's not going to be so good. So pretty much the last stand of my opponent here going to be power building this outpost, but the repeater crossbows able to push them back, and they are going to be fleeing for the hills. But I think this is going to be the last rowdy push, as the keep will actually be coming up here, which is pretty hilarious. I pick off as many villagers as I can, basically just ending the game right there. Granted, it's probably been over for a period of time, but he's down to 28 villagers right now, so even if he were to push me back, I don't know if his economy would be able to sustain. And we're doing okay. We're actually getting relatively close to going Castle Age ourselves. I forgot to update the lumber mill, but our gold is really, really good. And we're just using that gold to kind of trade for what we need and just using it as a kind of a cure-all. But we do have the emplacements here, so now we have hand cannon. So even if men-at-arms or quality troops decide to push into us, they're going to be taking triple hand cannon fire, which is going to be very, very brutal. So from here, we just push on the old House of Wisdom. A couple of the Abbasid are going to be trying to repair it. The keep is shooting, but keeps do almost nothing against battering rams. And the ZHUGE continue to pour in, and that is going to be GG. So yeah, it's a very, very strong build. I played probably like, I don't know, 6 or 7 games with it in the past couple days, and I think I've only lost like 2 of them. I think I went like 5-2, and it's pretty strong. It definitely can do some solid work, and yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Let's take a look at the overview of the game. So let me go ahead and find it. I think it was it this one? It was on a high view? Yes, it was. So looking at the old timeline here, let's see the military score, you know, all these pertinent stats, but yeah, it kind of takes away some of the features when you look at it via the replays, but let's look at the overall score. And yeah, he did kind of pull ahead there, man. I was pushing in, and yeah, he was ahead for a while once he hit that second age, but we did have those early fights. We got a couple of villagers, we had a fair amount of eco damage, and then from there we took off. So well played to my opponent. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. I highly recommend the build. I think it's a build that's very mechanical, and if you're a newer player looking to kind of climb ladder, I think if you're able to master this build, you're going to be able to get some pretty good you know, wins in there, because it's hard to stop. It takes a lot of micro. The repeater crossbows being spammed out are very effective. Remember, the key is you go fast tier 2. When you hit tier 2, you build 2 officials, 1 official on wood, 1 official on the blacksmith to get the faster tech if need be, and then on the archery range, you spam archers, and you're getting a ton of wood because your supervisor is supervising your lumber mill, and then from there you can spam out battering rams and just go crazy. And you want to bring 2 workers or even 3 with you on your initial rush to get the outpost set up, because they can be very, very strong, especially considering China builds outposts much quicker. So give the build a try. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. That is it for now. We'll see you guys on the other side, and take care of yourselves.